It was supposed to be a magical day at the happiest place on earth, where dreams come true and families make unforgettable memories. But in June of 1979, tragedy struck at Disneyland. Sherrill Anne Hoffman, a young mother, embarked on the Space Mountain ride, a thrilling journey through the darkness of outer space. Unfortunately, she would never make it off the ride. Sherrill Anne Hoffman, who often went by Sherry, was a woman with a zest for life and a love of adventure. Born in Hawthorne, California, she grew up with a passion for travel and exploring the world around her. Sherrill was always looking for her next thrill, whether it was skydiving, scuba diving, or racing motorcycles. Her fearless spirit and outgoing personality made her a beloved member of the community, and she was always the life of the party. As she got older, Sherrill's love of adventure never faded. She enrolled at El Camino Junior College, where she studied nursing and dreamed of traveling the world to help those in need. After finishing school, she began working as a registered nurse at a hospital in California. But despite her busy career, she still found time to pursue her love of adventure, traveling and exploring the world whenever she could. Sherry was dearly loved by her family and friends, who admired her adventurous spirit and kind heart. She was the youngest of 2 children and had a close relationship with her siblings and parents. Cheryl's parents, Robert and Margaret Hoffman, were devastated by the loss of their daughter, who they described as a shining star in their lives. She was also married, though her husband has remained out of the public eye since his wife's accident. Her memory lives on through her loved ones and those who remember her as a vibrant and passionate young woman. After college, Sherrill worked various jobs, including stints as a waitress and a secretary. But her sense of adventure and desire to explore new places and experiences never waned. In 1979, she decided to take a trip to California's Disneyland theme park to indulge in some harmless fun and thrills. At the time, Disneyland was a popular attraction that drew millions of visitors from around the world each year. Sherrill, like many others, was eager to experience the park's rides and attractions. And during that time, Disneyland was absolutely thriving. Sherry, like we've talked about, was an adventurous spirit, always seeking out new experiences and thrills. In the late summer of 1979, she decided to take a trip to Disneyland, one of her favorite theme parks. As she walked through the gates, she couldn't wait to explore all of the attractions and rides that awaited her. She had been a couple of times before, but it had been long enough that there were some interesting new attractions available. One of the attractions that caught her eye was Space Mountain, a roller coaster ride that promised to take her on a thrilling journey through the galaxy. It had only opened 4 years prior in 1975, and she hadn't had the chance to ride it yet. Sherrill had always loved roller coasters and the rush of adrenaline that came with them. She made her way to the entrance of the ride and joined the queue, eagerly waiting her turn. As she waited in line, Sherrill noticed that the ride was different from other roller coasters she had been on. Space Mountain was an indoor ride with dim lighting and projections of stars and galaxies that gave the illusion of a space voyage. The ride also had sudden drops and twists that made it more intense than other coasters. She spoke about that with her family, who were with her that day, and they all seemed quite excited about it. Because of this, Sherrill remained undeterred. She was determined to experience everything Disneyland had to offer, including this exhilarating ride. As she boarded the coaster car and pulled the safety bar down over her lap, she may have felt a sense of excitement and anticipation for the adventure ahead. Little did she know that something truly terrible would happen to her on this fateful day at Disneyland. As Sherrill's rocket made its way through the twists and turns of Space Mountain, something went terribly wrong. She seemed like she was doing okay throughout a majority of the ride, but when it finally returned to the starting station, she felt incredibly ill. She told the operators that she didn't think she could move, and even with their help, they were unable to remove her from the makeshift rocket that made up the ride cars. In a moment of confusion, a cast member signaled to the ride operator to take the rocket off the tracks, but the operator misunderstood and sent it on the ride again to make another full loop of the entire coaster. When the rocket returned once more, Sherrill was unconscious and barely breathing. What could have caused her to black out so suddenly? She was rushed to the Disney health facilities and then eventually taken to a hospital. But she unfortunately died several hours after the incident. There was no bloodshed, no horrible accident, and no malfunction of the ride. She just seemed to mysteriously die. Was it the thrill of the ride that overwhelmed her senses? Or was it something more sinister, like a pre-existing medical condition that had gone undetected? The answers to these questions would remain shrouded in mystery for some time, but it would eventually be figured out. Before we discuss that, however, let's talk about the aftermath of the accident and Disneyland's response on the matter. Following the tragic incident, Disneyland launched an internal investigation to determine the cause of Sherrill's death. The ride was temporarily shut down and remained closed for 2 days during the investigation. The Orange County Sheriff's Department also conducted its own investigation to determine if any criminal charges were warranted. As the investigations proceeded, the question of liability began to arise. Sherrill's family filed a lawsuit against Disneyland and several other parties, including the ride's manufacturer, alleging negligence in allowing her to ride the attraction despite her health conditions. Disneyland denied any wrongdoing, stating that Sherrill had falsely represented her health status on the ride's safety questionnaire. But had she really done so? What sort of health condition would result in someone dying on a roller coaster in a manner such as this? The lawsuit ultimately went to trial, with both sides presenting their arguments and evidence. In the end, the jury ruled in favor of Disneyland and the other defendants, stating that they were not liable for Sherrill's death. They said that the pre-existing health condition was responsible for her death and that the coaster had nothing to do with it. Despite this, the incident led to significant changes in Disneyland's safety policies, including stricter guidelines for ride safety and mandatory health screening for all guests with pre-existing medical conditions. The aftermath of the tragedy also had a lasting impact on Sherrill's family and friends, who mourned the loss of a beloved daughter, sister, and friend. The incident also brought renewed attention to the safety of theme park rides, leading to increased scrutiny and regulation in the industry. After the tragic accident, an investigation was launched by the Anaheim Police Department to determine the true cause of Sherrill's death in tandem with the lawsuit. An autopsy revealed that the cause of death was actually a tumor in her heart that had become dislodged, breaking apart, and flowing through her bloodstream, which eventually caused her coma. The investigation ultimately concluded that the ride was not at fault and that the incident was a tragic accident. The news shocked many who had been following the story, as the true cause of Sherrill's death had not been immediately apparent. It was a terrible, undetectable evil that stole a wonderful mother and daughter away from people. Despite the tragic end to Sherry's life, her loved ones remember her as a vibrant and adventurous person who brought joy to everyone around her. Her friends and family describe her as the life of the party, always ready for the next adventure. Many of them couldn't accept that she was gone and would never provide that light to their life again. Sherry's passing left a deep impact on our community, with many coming together to mourn and celebrate her life. The news of her death was a shock to everyone who knew her, and it was clear that she would be deeply missed. She was the mother to 2 young children who lost their mother in a confusing and heartbreaking way. As time passed, Sherry's memory lived on. Friends and family established scholarships and memorials in her honor, ensuring that her spirit would continue to inspire and uplift others for generations to come. Many of these scholarships are based around arts and the performing arts, which Sherry always loved. Even in death, Sherry's adventurous spirit and love for life continue to touch the hearts of those who knew her. May Sherrill Anne Hoffman rest in peace.